Stirling in Scotland is home to Alana Longshaw. She's 19 years old and openly admits that until recently she lacked experience in matters of the heart.
I'd had relationships before, but I had never loved anyone before. I never knew what love was. I never knew how I would feel.
That was until she met Jan. It all began in 2010. Alana was a 16-year-old schoolgirl who regularly visited Turkey with her family. She became part of an internet-based fan group for their favourite resort.
I had joined a Marmaris group for everyone that goes on holiday there. The next minute I had a message and it was from him saying hello. We started speaking every single night, every week, every day.
At the start, they were just online buddies, but in 2010, a family trip to Marmaris on the southwest coast of Turkey transformed their relationship. Alana was there with her mum and family friend Adrian, but ended up having a surprise encounter.
I just remember him walking past. Well, I turned round, that's Jan, and he turned round and spotted you. He kind of had his eyes set on you, as if nothing else mattered. Didn't like the look of him, how he was acting.
But Adrian's opinion had little impact on Alana.
I'd felt myself melt. I was just like, oh my God, everything about him was better in person. He was so perfect. There was no one way I could fault him.
Soon after her first trip, she persuaded her mother to return to Turkey so she could spend more time with Jan. But holidays were not enough, and lovesick Alana set her heart on moving to Marmaris for good.
I wasn't happy at all, but even though she was young, she still had the opportunity to do whatever she wanted to do, so I had to just go along with that.
I spoke to my mum about it and I said I really need to go, and she still disagreed, and I told her, I'm 16, if you don't let me go, I'm just going to go anyway.
So Alana had her wish, and in 2011, she flew to Turkey to start a new life with her dream boyfriend. In January 2011, at the age of just 16, Alana Longshaw moved to Turkey to be with her dream love, Jan. Wedding bells were soon on the horizon. Instead of getting engagement rings, they had his and hers tattoos. For a while, everything went smoothly, but soon her dreams of marriage began to turn sour.
The money was running out, so it started getting more stressful between us. So he started to go out more and leave me in. So he would go out with his friends and then come back with not a penny.
Towards the end of their time together, Alana says Jan became violent towards her.
We were arguing a lot more, and then he started shouting about where I had been and who I was with. And at that point he just lashed out and slapped me across the face. I was so shocked I couldn't think what to do, so I tried to grab my passport and run out the room, and he came after me and grabbed the back of my hair and pulled me back in again. So I knew at that point everything had changed.
Alana claims Jan went on to slap her on another occasion. In August 2011, she decided enough was enough and ended their 8-month relationship to return home to Scotland.
As soon as I got through the doors at the airport, I just felt like a huge relief.
Alana was just 16 when she left Scotland to live with her Turkish boyfriend in Marmaris. At the end of their failed relationship, she returned home to Stirling. But her mother noticed something was different.
One day we were out shopping and she said, "You've put on a lot of weight." She said, "Just sometimes the way you stand," she said, you look like you're pregnant." And I was laughing at her. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh, come on, don't be ridiculous.
She's now 19 and mum to 2-year-old Aydin, whose father is her former Turkish boyfriend, Jan.
I knew nothing about babies at all. I'd never even held a baby before. It wasn't the way that I wanted it to be. We weren't together and I was only 17.
Alana doesn't want Aydin's face to be shown on television, and for good reason.
Jan had an argument with me about something, and he said, "Oh, I hope you both die in labour." And that was really the turning point for me, that I would never ever go back over there and I would never take Aydin.
Alana says Jan has also threatened to snatch her son and take him back to Turkey.
He said, if you don't bring him over to see me, then I'm going to come over there and take him. It's really upsetting and disturbing, and I try not to think about it. I would do everything that I could to make sure that he'll never come over here, ever.
Alana Longshore is also coming to terms with life after her love rat experience. She came back to Stirling pregnant and has since discovered more about her ex-boyfriend Jan's post-breakup relationships. In July 2013, he appeared in the national news in connection with another young British teenager.
I just seen the headline and seen his face, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, what has he done now?
In a newspaper interview in summer 2013, Murat Janatani described himself as a bad boy and admitted he can't stay with just one girl for more than a few weeks.
I started getting the messages about all the different girls that he was going to meet. I would say, all in all, it was about 15 different women. He would say things like, after Aiden was born, me and my new girlfriend are going to have a baby and it's going to be better than the baby I had with you. It was all messages relating to a new girlfriend all the time.
Back in Stirling, teenage mum Alana Longshore is seeking legal advice. She claims former boyfriend Jan has made threats to take her son Aydin back to Turkey.
I'm hoping today with the advice that I'm going to get that shows that I have more rights about Aydin than Jan does, as I am the main carer. I'm hoping Aydin will be able to live a safe life in the UK with no threats of Jan coming over here and taking him from me, and that we can just get on with our lives.
We haven't come too far today.
No, not too far.
Just in here.
Thanks very much.
Solicitor Fraser Tate specialises in family law, and Alana is hoping his advice can ease her concerns.
He has given threats that he would come here and take Aydin back to Turkey, and that I would never see him again.
There's two ways you could try and get Aydin, legally and illegally. Now, if it's legally, he's going to have to go through the courts, and if it's illegally, he's basically going to have to try and snatch Aydin, and he would be very foolish to try and do that, because more than likely he'll be caught. In terms of legally, Aydin's never been in Turkey, so Mr. Artani would have to raise a court action in Scotland. From what you've told me, I think it's highly unlikely that a court would consider it's in Aydin's interest to see his father.
So in general, how would you say my position was?
You're the only parent Aydin has known. You're the main carer for Aydin. He's always stayed with you, he's always stayed in this country. I think it's highly unlikely that Aydin would have to have any contact with his father.
Good news for Alana.
I feel so relieved that all the doubts in the back of my mind have been answered, that me and Aydin are going to be safe, and that there's not really anything Jan can do to take Aydin from me or to come here and hurt any of us. I just feel like this is the part where it can all be in the past and that I can move on and just a fresh start and not have to worry about what's going to happen and if I'm going to have my son taken from me.
We've made contact with Jan, but we've been unable to get any response to questions about his relationship with Alana.
Make sure Aydin has everything he needs and just be a role model for him and show him the right way so he never ends up in a horrible situation or ends up a horrible person like his dad is.
In southeast England, music promoter Kim is watching her wedding video with friend Nicola.
This is what they call the marriage celebration in Senegal.
She married 44-year-old Lai So during a holiday in Senegal in 2007 when she was 50.
I didn't get a cake, I got a goat that was sacrificed for me.
When Kim was introduced to musician Lai in the UK earlier that year, her attraction to him was instant.
I thought he was one of the most beautiful men I'd ever seen in my life. Charismatic, he was charming. He said that he was a widower with 3 children. And so I shared with him very early on that I too had lost 2 children. I was carrying twins, I lost them.
After sharing their most intimate secrets, Kim began to dream of a new life with Lai and his children.
We talked about the children all the time. I began to have dreams of us all being together as a happy family.
Lai was soon pressing Kim for a permanent commitment.
Marriage was talked about quite early in the relationship. He said to me almost every day how much he loved me.
So, looking back, you think this was genuine at the time, or?
I thought it was 100% genuine. And even now, looking at the video, I can't see it.
Years after her wedding, Kim says she was told Lai may have been hiding a huge secret.
Family members later on were to tell me that he was already married. And after all, surely I knew he was already married.
Kim's nightmare at the hands of a man she now suspects of bigamy was just beginning.
He really made me feel age wasn't a factor, and that he was a serious man, and that what he was looking for was a life partner with somebody who could be the mother to his children.
Kim believed she was living a happy and monogamous life with Lai So for 5 years, until in January 2013, when things began to unravel. Musician Lai, then 49, was in Senegal making preparations for his children to move to the UK, into a house Kim had bought for them all to live in.
Suddenly I get this phone call. I've lost my credit cards. I can't pay the school fees. I need some money. So I sent over all the money that I had at that time on me.
Around this time, Kim noticed Lai had removed his property from her house.
He had taken all of his smart suits, winter clothes, etc. And suddenly I realised he had gone.
Kim used social media to notify her friends and contacts of Lai's unexpected departure.
This is when all hell broke loose. Suddenly I had loads of women contacting me.
Kim was inundated with women making claims about Lai. She says she was sent photos of one of the women she was being told Lai was married to.
Suddenly I was being sent pictures of his wife in the house, pictures of the children cuddled up on the wife.
Kim was receiving repeated allegations about her husband.
I still to this day don't know how many children he's got. I'd learnt about 5 wives. I could not move. I was rigid in trauma.
As the allegations came thick and fast, Kim didn't know what to believe. She struggled to cope, and the toll on her led to a near-fatal accident.
I actually drank a bottle of vodka, staggered up the stairs, and I ended up falling down there. And I still to this day don't know how I didn't kill myself. And actually, I didn't even care whether I lived or died at that point.
In 2013, music promoter Kim was preparing her home in the UK for her Senegalese partner Lai and his children.
Yes, these were the beds for the first 2 children to use. Pretty sad.
But after she received social media messages suggesting Lai may have had multiple relationships and even marriages, she hit her lowest ebb.
My children had gone, my husband had gone. I lost everything so quickly.
Having drunk a bottle of vodka and fallen down the stairs, Kim was rescued after neighbours alerted the emergency services.
The only thing I could say to the paramedics was no, 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 no. It was all too much to take on board. How come I haven't seen what was going on?
But the nightmare at the hands of a man she fears may be a bigamist is far from over for Kim. Kim now suspects that the end game all along was for Lai to get her rental property.
He sued me for divorce on the grounds of my unreasonable behaviour and put charges on my property so that I wasn't able to sell the property. He's trying to evict the tenants. He's trying to take my money through the divorce procedure. He thinks that he can take my assets away from me.
Coming up, Kim's hunt for evidence of bigamy.
We have it quite clearly said on camera, my wife, my wife.
Kim is fighting to keep her property out of the hands of her love-rat husband, Lai. Kim believes if she can find evidence he committed bigamy, then Lai won't be able to make claims on her house. Kim has been sent a video by a former associate of Lai's, which we are unable to show for legal reasons.
I have a lovely wife, and she's beautiful, and she loves me 1000%. I've heard those words so many times.
Tonight, Kim is watching the video, which was shot in 2003 for the first time.
Only my wife understands me. How many times have I heard that?
It shows Lai repeatedly referring to another woman as his wife 4 years before he was married to Kim.
Now I'm seeing the real person. Charming, good-looking, smooth-talking. I've heard all those words before. They've been said to me.
Seeing the video has stirred up some strong emotions for Kim, who hopes it is evidence that helps prove Lai's bigamy.
What a total, utter shit. I am so angry. I am so... I have no words. I'm so angry. He needs to be in prison. I hope it's a smoking gun that we need. This will be handed to the police. We have it quite clearly said on camera, my wife, my wife.
Kim thinks she may be married to a bigamist who is attempting to claim her property via the divorce courts. As yet unable to prove social media claims of bigamy, Kim has travelled to Huddersfield to seek advice from family solicitor Jonathan James.
I'm hoping that he's going to be able to give his expert eye as to which way we should be attacking this.
If Kim can prove musician Lai married her bigamously, she will not have to go through a complicated divorce battle.
We try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. So what I'm looking for in any particular case of this nature is, can I show on the documents there was a valid previous marriage? If you can show that, even out of a set of 4 other potential marriages, you stick with that one. Because that one can be the killer punch that ends the case.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're dragged into the whole divorce finance swamp. And believe me, it's a swamp.
I know.
It's about dividing up what there is. It's about money.
At the moment, it's all a bit of a mess, and people in our situation are stuck.
Yes. It's complicated. It's drawn out. And because a lot of it is in your hands as a private individual, the risk is that it gets really very expensive.
Yes.
Kim needs to find more hard evidence of the claims of bigamy. Until then, her case is set to remain ongoing.
Kim has some hard decisions to take. Nobody enjoys having a courtroom fight, and she's going to have to weigh up the cost of doing that and whether she grits her teeth, swallows her pride, and decides to keep as much money as she can and pay him something to get rid. And that really will go against the grain.
Kim is willing to be patient in her battle with Lai.
It's just a waiting game at the moment to see what paper evidence that we can get together. But I won't stop until we've actually got some resolution.
We have contacted Lai, but he has not responded to Kim's allegations. As they all attempt to rebuild their lives, each woman has come to their own conclusion about the overseas charmer they fell for.
I don't believe my husband ever loved me for a moment. He loved what I could provide for him. I was a means to an end. I was an opportunity. I was a target.
Drum teacher Diane from Staffordshire has a passion for African music.
Drumming is very important to me because when I'm drumming, I don't think about anything else at all.
In 2009, her love of drumming took her on holiday to the Gambia in West Africa.
I'd been playing and learning West African percussion for several years, and a group of us went to Gambia to spend 2 weeks there to study with authentic djembe folas, which is drum masters from Guinea. I'd never seen drums played the way they played them, and the sound was just amazing. So to be in Africa and to see and hear that and experience that was just beautiful.
Then, aged 53, Diane had been single for 5 months, but wasn't interested in romance.
Love and relationships was the last thing on my mind. I was focusing totally on the music, experiencing a new and exciting culture, learning about that.
1, 2, 3, 4. But everything changed when Diane crossed paths with drum master Mo Bear.
We'd had a beach party one night, all the students and the musicians, and he approached me from behind and he touched the small of my back. I didn't know who it was, but I remember turning around and being surprised to see that it was him, because it was strangely emotional. The attraction was the music, I think. Meeting somebody so talented in such a different way. When anybody's abroad, I think you sort of enter a different type of personality, if you like. It's different, isn't it? I was on my own, I had no family, I had no ties with me. So I felt very independent and very free, yeah.
After that first trip, Diane and Mo Bear embarked on a long-distance love affair.
If I thought practically this is likely not to work, I could have said no. But love is like an addiction. I needed to be with him, I wanted to be with him, and when I wasn't with him, it was difficult and I missed him incredibly. So that to me is what love is. I needed to be with him.
Diane was hooked, but the journey she was beginning was to prove both expensive and heartbreaking. Diane was looking forward to a bright future with Mo Bear, who she'd met in 2009 in Gambia, a country near to his native Guinea.
He looked after me beautifully. He was very careful, very protective, very attentive. He had the most beautiful smile. He had mentioned marriage, and I was a little bit alarmed. I wasn't naive. I knew that there was a risk that this wasn't genuine.
Almost 2 years after they met, Diane pushed her doubts to one side, and in November 2010, Diane and Mo Bear got married. But immediately after the wedding, Diane began to question why Mo Bear had been so keen to marry.
We got back to the hotel and I noticed a change almost that quickly. He was celebrating with his friends, really, and he wasn't celebrating marrying the love of his life or the future in that. He was celebrating his achievement. He'd married a European woman. He now had in his possession a wedding certificate that was almost like the Holy Grail to him. He could hardly let go of it, and he'd achieved everything he could possibly achieve at that point in his life.
Diane and Mo Bear had decided they'd live in the UK once they were married. As their wedding was recognised in Britain, Diane could now apply for the visa that allowed Mo Bear to officially make that move.
When I look at the wedding photographs, I was happy, and I honestly thought he was too.
But Diane and Mo Bear were not destined for a lifelong marriage. In 2009, African drum teacher Diane fell in love with Mo Bear. After nearly 2 years, they married in Gambia before beginning life as newlyweds in Diane's Staffordshire home. Almost immediately, money was an issue.
I was pretty horrified when he arrived with one suitcase. I thought, wow, he's expecting me to just buy him a whole wardrobe of clothes and has no concept of money.
Diane had paid for Mo Bear's visa application and was supporting him whilst he looked for work as a musician.
It was very difficult financially, and it caused a lot of problems. He hadn't earned enough money to really contribute to our lives in the household, and when he did earn money, he didn't want to give me any of it.
After paying for everything for 3 years, as well as sending gifts and money to Mober's family in Africa, Diane said she'd spent thousands of pounds, almost all of her savings.
He went to Guinea again in 2013. I couldn't afford it, so I managed to get enough money together for him to go. When he went, everything changed. I had Skype calls from him and he would say, "Don't contact me," which was very alien to me. He always kept in touch, and I said, "What do you mean, don't contact you? You're my husband, what's happening?"
Mober stayed in Guinea for 3 months, but just a few weeks after his return, Diane found a letter in Mober's luggage, which seemed to prove he was planning to end their marriage.
It's a description of how to apply for citizenship without having to be in a marriage any longer. He, of course, said, "I've never seen that piece of paper before in my life," and refused to acknowledge that he knew what it was and was not prepared to tell me who'd written it. And you can imagine my shock at finding that. Awful.
Because musician Mober had now been married to Diane and resident in the UK for 3 years, he could apply for British citizenship.
He knew that after 3 years of being in any marriage to a British person, he could get British citizenship, which would entitle him to travel throughout Europe freely without a visa.
After discovering the note, Diane confronted Mober.
Even with me, as patient as that being, he knew time was running out. So, eventually he decided to hole himself up in this spare bedroom and live in here, basically. I remember during those days, I was sitting downstairs and he came down and sat on the stairs halfway down, and he just sat on the stairs playing with his tablet. And I remember feeling strangely, desperately sorry for him. Yeah. And I said, why are you sitting there? Come down. But he didn't, he went back upstairs then. But it was so sad, and it was almost like a cry for help, really. And I'll never forget that.
The relationship was over.
There was no turning back, he knew that. He knew there was no turning back then. He just thought he'd done everything he needed to do, and he was ready to get his citizenship. And looking forward to it. Probably as excited about that as he was about the marriage.
Mober left Diane with his insults ringing in her ears.
He said to me in Susu, "Your mother is an unrepeatable word." A terrible, terrible thing to say to me. That was the last thing he ever said to me. No.
It's been less than a year since Diane's husband made an unexpected exit.
Because of the emotional effect it had on me, I lost 8 teeth at the back. I had alopecia, my hair started to fall out. It's just growing back again nicely now. And I also gained weight. I don't think I'll ever get over it. It is like a bereavement, the emotions that you feel, but it's not like a bereavement because the person that caused this pain, this suffering, is still out there.
Bruised and broken-hearted, Diane's en route to meet a therapist specialising in love and relationships.
I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit cathartic and help me to understand more about what's happened, really.
Donna Dawson wants to help Diane deal with some very painful emotions.
How did he make you feel loved?
That's a good question. It felt so natural. It felt like any courtship.
See, the thing about Western notion of love is that you start off with this kind of blank canvas upon which you project your needs and desires. The person becomes the blank canvas. Your needs and desires go on that. And what we tend to do with our rose-coloured spectacles is disregard anything that doesn't fit. Yes. And of course, when we have to then face the ugly truth, we go into a kind of bereavement for the relationship we thought we had. How do you feel now, looking back on it? What do you take from it?
I've got anger.
Sure.
I'm much better health-wise now because I was physically and mentally a mess. I'm guilty. I feel guilty. I feel sad.
You can't fully be blamed because you actually saw a progression there that you could believe in. You've got to hold your head up high and say, I went in that with best intentions.
A good person, yeah.
And you, my darling, you are going to be okay.
Yes.
You will be.
I feel quite cleansed to a degree, and a lot more confident. I feel far more ready and prepared to move on now and to enjoy my life more, I think, and enjoy Me more.
In Staffordshire, Diane's still dealing with the legacy of her marriage to Mobert. He arrived in the UK in 2011. It was at this time that Diane saw evidence making her think Mobert could be in a relationship with another woman, whilst married to her.
Shortly after Mobert arrived in the UK, he asked me to open his email, and jumping out at me was an email that he'd sent to a lady in Holland. Of course, by this time we were married, and the email was written in English, and it was exactly the same as the emails that he used to send to me that were promises of love and devotion. They were tools, you know, they were grooming tools, if you like. So I challenged him about it and said, this is a love letter, you know, to this lady in Holland. And of course he denied it and said he didn't write it, it wasn't him, because that's what they do. And I had to take it on the chin, really, because by that time we were married, the commitment was made, he was here in the UK.
But Mobert was in contact with more than just one other woman.
He had lots of conversations with a Guinean lady who lived in Italy, and I questioned that frequently.
Diane also received an apology from a woman in Wales who said she was addicted to Mobert.
She rang me to tell me, I don't know why, she rang me to tell me she'd been having an affair with him.
Diane also believes the woman was in Guinea with Mobert when he spent 3 months there, just before he left her.
I'd helped her to arrange her trip and supported her with that, not knowing that she was having an affair with my husband whilst I was doing that. That was an awful, awful time for me. He had once said to me during the marriage, I want more children, and I'd said to him, well, how are you going to do that then? Because he knew I would never have any more children. And he just looked at me and didn't know what to say, because he knew he'd said something rather silly and foolish. And I said, how are you going to do that then? How are you going to have more babies? And he said, you think I'm going to leave this planet with no more babies? I said, well, yeah, okay, how are you going to do it? And I said, are you waiting for me to die?
In Staffordshire, Diane's meeting her friend David.
Hello, David.
Hi, Diane.
He's spent a lot of time in Gambia and has heard local men discussing how best to get into a relationship with Western women.
Used to sit around in huddles discussing this for hours. First of all, how do you find a woman? Mm-hmm. What age range do you go for? Mm-hmm. What are the easiest to attract? And then once you're in England, stories would come back about how you manipulate things in England and how you go about it. So they used to sit around for hours and discussing these, you know, processes that they'd go through.
Nearly 6 years after her first trip to the Gambia, Diane's reassessed her experience and what she thinks Mobert's motives were.
What he did was massive. He left his friends, his family, his culture, his music, his life. Even the food that he ate, he left it all behind to be here in the UK. Not as I thought to be with me, but to be in the UK, hopefully make a good amount of money to send home, to build a house for his terribly impoverished family in a third world country, and to care for them and look after them. And that was his aim. I always thought that it was me, but looking back, it wasn't.
Diane has also lost valuable assets.
He lost a very expensive pen, he lost a laptop that I gave him at one point that disappeared, a video camera. Oh, it's endless the amount of things that he lost. Everything, really. And he would say that material things didn't mean anything to him, but...
The spice market in central Istanbul, the perfect place to pick up something Turkish.
Thank you very much. See you again. Bye.
54-year-old Tracy loves it here.
Oh, teşekkür ederim. I love this.
And she's used to the ways of this part of the world.
Are you from Germany or England?
England. Manchester.
Well, I want to get married.
You want to get married? What, and move to England?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find them on the internet.
The men, they see an English face. They'll try anything.
Tracy says she was never in the market for love.
I hadn't had a relationship for years after my divorce. I wasn't interested in men. I was quite happy. I didn't want to meet a man.
But in 2009, while Tracy was online, a handsome 31-year-old from the southeast area of Turkey said hi.
He was friendly and we just got chatting and he seemed like a decent guy. He had a decent job. He was a dialysis technician. He was very attentive. He was very flattering.
His name was Bülent Doğan, and he turned on the charm. Tracy was seduced by the thought of a life full of Eastern promise.
Within weeks, he was telling me that he loved me. And to be honest, I had got very strong feelings for him too. It just felt right. And from there, I went out to meet him in Istanbul.
For Tracy, this was going to be a holiday to remember. After being single for 10 years, she was about to spend a whole holiday with the man of her dreams.
We're both like school kids. Basically, it was like our first date ever, I think. And I was shaking, he was shaking.
Tracy felt they clicked instantly.
He made me feel good, he made me feel alive again, to be honest. And the fact that he was younger, I think, at the back of my mind, it was, yeah, I can still pull.
Despite the excitement, Tracy found out Bülent's job back home wasn't quite as well paid as she had assumed, and he was skint.
He didn't have that much money to spend, and I ended up paying for most things there. And I think it came to the crunch on a night when we'd just had a couple of drinks in the room, and he suddenly said, I need your help. He said, I don't have the money to get back home. So on the final day of the holiday, we ended up going up to the airport and buying him a ticket to get back home. I funded that ticket and he never offered the money back.
Tracy was to return home in love, but out of pocket.
They call it sarma. And sometimes they put meat in it. Sometimes they just put vegetables like I'm doing, because I've got vegetarian friends.
Tracy's holiday in Turkey with her new love Bülent was a great success, even though she had paid for everything. When she returned home, he asked Tracy to help him pay a phone bill.
He claimed he had a bill for a mobile phone he was being taken to court for. I actually said, how much is it for? It was a lot more than I expected. It was 1,700 lira.
She gave Bülent money to cover the bill, but he didn't provide a receipt. It was just the first big bill Tracy says she was asked to pay. Adding up the hotels, flights and other gifts, Tracy says it was an expensive relationship.
Over the 3.5 years that I went out to see him, I will have spent in excess of £16,000. And it could have been a lot more had it gone on any longer.
In 2009, Tracy from Manchester had started seeing Bülent Doğan, who lived in Turkey and made regular holiday trips to be with him. But she quickly found the relationship was costing her a small fortune. She continued seeing him for more than 3 years, but then enough was enough.
He didn't pay towards anything. The money that he took from me was £1,000 for a mobile phone bill, and then the final straw was when he asked for a £2,000 loan.
The loan was for a kebab shop. Bülent said he needed to pay for a licence to trade. Tracy wired the cash, but she never saw it again.
I just felt devastated. I had trusted this guy, I'd given him a chance, and all the time I now believe that he'd actually been just stringing me along, getting as much as he could.
3 years ago, Tracy filed a case to a Turkish court demanding Bülent pay her back, but the case was not taken any further because he didn't have any money.
He's had long enough to come up with some form of payment plan, and now I think I need to seek some more advice, see if there's anything that I can do to actually make him pay the money back.
Tracy from Manchester ended her relationship with her Turkish ex when she says he failed to pay back a £2,000 business loan. She's come to London to meet Action Fraud, part of the City of London Police, who recently issued warnings over so-called romance scams.
I've never seen a penny, and I'd like to know if there's any way that he can be forced to pay any of the money that he's owing. So I just thought maybe if I speak to Action Fraud, they could give me some idea of what I could do.
The deputy head of Action Fraud is keen to meet Tracy as part of their ongoing intelligence gathering.
Welcome, Tracy. You've reported this to us as a romance fraud. So you said right from the outset you thought there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And yet
I felt
you've still
sucked in.
gone through. So could you sort of explain the sort of process, if you like?
I can't explain, but my story is the same as many, many more. I run a Facebook group and there's so many ladies telling the same story, but they have actually met the guys in person first down at the beach or some seaside place or even inland, and they fall into exactly the same trap. I thought I was pretty astute before all this.
Yeah.
I thought I was quite intelligent, but for some reason, they take over.
So it's the emotional attachments that are making you be irrational, do things...
Irrational.
It was irrational.
It was irrational. I'll openly say I was stupid. I was irrational. I wasn't thinking. Everybody thinks the guys are different.
Tracy's story may be common, but she is determined to pursue Bülent Doğan for the £2,000 she says she lent him.
So as far as the money that I'm owed now, is there anything you could suggest that I could do now?
You must pursue that through the Turkish authorities.
OK, thank you.
She's admitted that she thought from the outset that there was something wrong and the alarm bells were ringing, but she was in love and the rational aspects that you would do, the due diligence you would usually do, go out of the window.
Tracy has decided to go back to Turkey to get legal advice about how to get Bülent to pay up.
I still feel very, very motivated now to go out and seek further advice, just to see what I can do, just to prove a point, because people like this should not be allowed to get away with it.
3,500 miles away, Tracy has arrived in Istanbul to seek legal advice to try and get back £2,000 she says she lent her ex, Bülent. She also claims that while she was on her last ever holiday with him, she discovered he was cheating.
I was tidying the room up and I decided to put something in his suitcase. There's no clothes in the suitcase, hardly. What there was winter clothes stuffed in a little bag of mine. I thought, this isn't right. So yeah, I had a look in his case. And that was when I found boarding passes from Helsinki to Oslo. I also found a letter from another woman saying, Bülent, you are impossible. I will be at the airport tomorrow, something like you'd better be there. I waited for him to come back to the room. I actually said to him, why didn't you tell me you've got another woman? There is no other woman. You're paranoid. And then I went to show him the boarding passes. I went to put my hand on the case. He grabbed my arm so hard. I had bruises down my arm for the rest of the holiday. He still denied it. I was just devastated because I didn't believe he'd do that. Yes, he flirts, but I really didn't believe he'd go and do something like that, but he did. It was then that I thought, hang on, have I been scammed?
Later, Tracy will meet a Turkish lawyer. She's prepared to go all the way to get back the money she says she's owed. Tracy also has a plan. She's in Istanbul to meet a lawyer to try to get back the money she says she lent her ex, Bülent.
But when I asked Bülent why he'd scammed me, the first thing he said, and it stuck in my head, it was easy. I want settlement. I've not been able to say anything face to face to him because he didn't have the guts. And if I hadn't have found the other woman's details within his suitcase, I would have still been none the wiser.
This is the first time Tracy has seen a translated statement from Bülent, who says he thought the money was a gift, not a loan.
According to this, I provided £2,000 sterling for purposes of providing support and assistance to him. I gave him the money for assistance only. He didn't deceive me or betray me in any way. The anger's back again. I can't wait to see this lawyer. I just hope they can do something about it.
In Istanbul, Tracy has already filed a case against her ex, but as he said he didn't have any money, her solicitor didn't take it any further.
Hello. Hi.
3 years on, Tracy feels differently, and local lawyer Sarah thinks she could file a criminal case.
If you could go again to the prosecutor to file a criminal case, I don't know the situation in Elazığ, but go directly to a police station and give your statement. Explain you have some evidences, including the receipt of your transfer to his bank account.
Yes. Can you, in a Turkish court, use texts, Facebook, email, MSN messages, things like that? Can that be used in court?
Yes.
I've got even more evidence.
In a criminal suit, you have more power. It's a better option to file this criminal suit.
Okay.
Filing a new criminal case could mean Tracy gets her money back, but it could also cost thousands in legal fees.
It's not a very cheap process for Tracy to file a criminal lawsuit, but it's Tracy's decision to find out if this would be cost effective or not.
People are probably saying, oh, why don't you let it go? This is principle. It's nothing to do with money, it's nothing to do with finances. This is actually principle.
Tracy is at the end of her trip in Istanbul. She's determined to continue her legal battle to get back money from her ex.
I think my personality has been changed by Bülent. Still, I'm very, very cautious, but I think there's no harm in being cautious.
Bülent disputes Tracy's version of events, in particular that he has to pay Tracy back the money she gave him. He also said he tried to break up with Tracy many times, but she wouldn't let him. Bülent says he is now happily married and wishes to be left alone. And Tracy is also in another relationship.
I've met somebody new. Aziz is totally different to Bülent. He can't do enough for me. He's absolutely besotted with me. He's never asked me for money, he's never asked me for anything. He's actually given me. To say that he doesn't have a lot, he would give me his last penny, he would do anything for me. Hello, hello.
Aziz is also Turkish, and talk of marriage is already on the cards.
I like Tracy because she is so honest, and she is a good woman. I will marry it, maybe. Tracy, if you want. We will see what happens.
The next step is going out to meet his family in Malaysia. I'll take it from there. You live once, and you take risks, and I'm taking another risk on Aziz, but I'm going in with my eyes open this time.
Whether it's the sandy beaches or the heat of the sun, some single ladies on holiday can't help but fall in love. Diane Peebles was away in Sri Lanka when a young hotel worker and tuk-tuk driver called Priyanjana turned her head.
I thought he was a very nice young man. He was very polite. He asked me for my mobile number, and then he asked me for my address, and I didn't think there was anything off it, romantically or anything.
Undeterred by the 33-year age gap and flattered by the young Sri Lankan's attention, when Diane got home to Edinburgh, things started to heat up.
And after I got back home, he tried to call me, but his English wasn't that good, so then he wrote me a few letters. And then from January 2012, we were texting each other. We had a conversation on the phone, and he mentioned marriage. And I was a bit taken aback.
At the time, Diane was 54 and had never been married before. She was seduced by the dream of a new life in paradise with a much younger man. So 7 months later, she flew back to Sri Lanka to see Priyanjana. Things quickly spiralled out of control.
He was really excited. He kept saying, tomorrow engagement, and I thought that we had to go to the registrar's office because I was a foreigner. I thought that we had to register it, you know, that we're getting engaged.
But at the registrar's office, it became clear Priyanjana had a different plan.
And then she started reciting, do you take, you know, blah, blah, blah. So That's when I discovered what was happening.
Diane was unwittingly taking part in her own wedding ceremony.
I was kind of shocked at first, but he was urging me to go ahead and just say it. So we got married. Didn't have a ring or anything, you know, which was very strange.
This was not the wedding Diane had dreamed of for decades, so the couple dressed up for official photographs. And at the beginning, the new relationship went well.
He was quite attentive and quite romantic and very loving. I was developing feelings for him by this time.
Diane wanted to build a new life with her husband, so she says she sent him £20,000 to start building a home in Sri Lanka for them both.
This is where I used to live.
A couple of years later, keen to help her young husband, Diane says she then sold her flat for £100,000, sending Priyanjana an additional £31,000. He used the money to upgrade his tuk-tuk to a minibus. Later, Diane decided to move to Sri Lanka to be with her new 21-year-old Sri Lankan husband. But instead of love blossoming, the romance withered.
He spent more time at his mother's house than he spent with me. Or he would go out with his friends. And he would never come home at night time. So he was never there. And it just wasn't working out. We were just arguing all the time about money.
Unable to return home, Diane started to realise this marriage may be a sham. And in 2016, 4 years after the wedding, Diane says she met another woman who claimed she was also married to Priyanjana. He denied it, but Diane says she saw a copy of a marriage certificate and even found Valentine's gifts.
I felt betrayed because I thought he really loved me. And that's why he married me, but obviously the marriage was never going to work because it was too big an age gap. His mother's 4 years younger than me, his father's 2 years older. My friends tried to tell me and I didn't listen to anyone.
Diane's situation was about to get much worse. News of the money from the sale of her flat back in Scotland spread throughout the area. With active local crime gangs, the couple's relative wealth put them in danger. Diane Peebles from Musselburgh near Edinburgh says she also felt from the moment she married that things were not right. Aged 54, she found herself in a relationship with a 21-year-old tuk-tuk driver called Priyanjana. She sold her flat and moved to Sri Lanka to build a new life with her new husband. But the marriage was in difficulty when another woman claimed to also be his wife. Then her story took an even darker turn. No one knows exactly what happened, but Diane believes Priyanjana, now regarded as wealthy, faced demands for protection money from gangsters. First, one of his friends was shot, then Priyanjana himself was murdered.
I was shocked and stunned. I didn't know what to think, because a lot of people were saying, oh, is he really dead? He's maybe hiding. Wait until you leave the country and then he's going to be with the other wife, sort of thing. But he was dead. You know, he hadn't faked his death or anything like that. He was really dead. His body, I mean, it didn't kind of look like him because I think they put too much embalming fluid in. So his body was all sort of swollen and puffed up. But it was definitely him.
Diane is now back in the UK, but she's £100,000 out of pocket with no flat and no job.
Hi Diane, are you right?
Hi, I'm fine.
Michelle, who runs the Stop UK Marriage Fraud Support Group, has come to Edinburgh to meet Diane. Michelle has met many women like Diane who have lost their life savings in foreign marriages.
What about your family and friends? Were they concerned about how this guy was sort of rushing you forward in this relationship?
Yeah, they were a bit concerned, but obviously I thought he was in love with me and I didn't listen to anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
What was the situation with his family after he was murdered?
Well, after he was murdered, they were really nice to me and they said, oh, you can stay here for as long as you want. This is your home. We'll look after you, we'll take you shopping, we'll take you to the doctors, wherever you need to go, just let us know.
This has been a terrifying ordeal for Diane. She was trapped in Sri Lanka. The minibus and home she paid for were in Priyanjana's name, so she couldn't get her money back.
He treated you appallingly.
He did.
Yeah, he did, yeah. But he paid a heavy price for it, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
He did, you know, because he's dead. So
that's true, yeah, 6 feet under, so...
Yeah.
Some people might say, oh, he got what he deserved because he wasn't very nice to me, he treated me very badly.
Diane says even after Priyanjana's murder, his family wanted more of her money, but it was all gone. It took her 2 years to raise enough cash to buy a plane ticket home to Scotland. Diane had lost everything.
When I told him I was leaving, his mother came over that morning, but he didn't want me to leave because he wouldn't get any more money out of me.
Well, they lost their cash cow now, because you're gone home.
I didn't have any money to give them anyway, so which they didn't.
You shouldn't give them money
They didn't
anyway.
understand.
Now back in Scotland, Diane faces an uncertain future.
Even before he died, it wasn't a great life. It wasn't the life I imagined I would have. But I wanted to live in paradise. I thought that's what was going to happen, but it didn't. I feel sad that I gave up my life. I feel it was just a waste and I shouldn't have given up my job and everything. And I really loved him and I thought he loved me, but he obviously didn't, so.